We are about to begin the QB Power Hour webinar series, your bi-weekly dose of insights and learning for accounting professionals with co-host Dan DeLong and along with Matthew Spot Fulton. We're here to explore the latest in the industry, QuickBooks, and integrations that matter to you. For more details on the series, visit qbpowerhour.com. Before we get started with the main content, we want to cover a few housekeeping tips. Any handouts or resources mentioned today will be provided for download, so no frantic note-taking required. If you miss anything or want to revisit a section, don't worry, video and audio replays of this live webinar will be available after the session. For everyone joining us live on Zoom, please use the Q&A panel for content-specific questions so we can address them directly during the session or follow up later. If you've got general comments or want to chat with your fellow attendees, use the chat feature. We love seeing your thoughts and reactions, so let's get started.
Welcome. We'll get started shortly. Before we begin, here's how to earn continuing professional education credit for attending this session. There are no polling questions or attendance checks. Instead, you will demonstrate your knowledge by taking a brief multiple-choice quiz using the Earmark app. Visit earmark.app in your web browser. You can also download the mobile app by scanning the QR code on the screen. Log in, or if you're new, create your free account. Be sure to use a valid email address because that's where we'll send your course completion certificates. From the home screen, scroll down to find the course. You can also tap the magnifying glass icon to search for the course. Tap on the course artwork, then the Enroll button. On the Course tab, you'll find the recording and quiz questions. Complete the quiz to earn your CPE certificate. It takes us a few days to create the course on the app, so if you are attending this session live, please wait a few days. We'll email you a link to the course when it is ready. If you have questions or need help, email us at support@earmarkcpe.com. And now, on to the event.
Well, welcome everyone to another QB. No. There we go. All I have to do is hit the advance the slide. I don't know why the video wants to play over and over again. But welcome to another QB Power Hour. We're going to be talking about moving QuickBooks Desktop to QuickBooks Online, the latest updates. So we're not we've done lots of best practices and things like that in the past, and we'll share those resources as we go through our time today. But what we want to focus on today is the latest changes since the last time that we've talked about the desktop migration. And so some pretty cool things that Intuit has been working on, especially if it's dealing with payroll and attachments. So we'll talk a little bit about that. So again, my name is Dan DeLong, owner at Dan Witt and School of Bookkeeping, worked at Intuit, doing all these things with desktop migration when you would call in and it didn't work right, because that never happens. But co-hosting today also over at Workshop Wednesdays at School of Bookkeeping, and the feature deep dive host over at the unofficial QuickBooks Accountant podcast. And I'm almost done with tech editing the next session of QBO for Dummies, which is really interesting this time of year because with the new user interface, they are I don't envy the author trying to write a book about QuickBooks Online in the midst of a UI change, but not me. Matthew, unfortunately, again, is not joining us today, but sliding in is Sharon Fuller. So, Sharon, for those that don't know who you are, give a little. Well,
intro. I ain't Matt. Disappoint everybody. I feel like people jump on this thing to see when Matt's going to be back, and they see my face. They're like, twice. Sharon Fuller, accounting firm owner ×3, almost a former accounting firm owner ×3. Super excited for that. Now just working on helping accountants and accounting firms really grow their business and work on it, not in it, and just jumping in wherever I can here. And also, we come from a QuickBooks only firm. It's all I've known, all I've grown to love, and with love there is hate, but you can't have hate without love. So here I am.
Here we are. All right. So let's talk a little bit about the QB Power Hour. If you're just joining us for the first time, It's every other Tuesday at noon Eastern. And now that I'm driving around the country, I don't know what time I'm in. But we do have CPE credit available through Earmark. There's the QR code for that, and there's a link um, in the slides there to be able to access our channel. All of our prior ones are available there as of today, except today's. And then, of course, if you need to, you can go to qbpowerhour.com/resources for PDFs of the prior slides, past recordings, as well as the podcast audio as well. All right, so today we're going to talk a little bit at the Intuit news. We've been incorporating some of the latest and I don't want to say greatest, but the news that Intuit has done since the last time, and we want to talk about it. Maybe there was a Facebook post about it or something like that, and we want to just kind of calibrate. That's the word I was looking for about that topic. But really, our topics, the meat and potatoes of what we're going to be talking about today is the desktop conversion, some new options, more data. They're allowing for more data. We'll talk about that. There are some checklists inside of QuickBooks Desktop, and one of those unraveled the payroll issue that we're going to be talking about later on. The ability now to do accounting only migrations when you already have a payroll subscription, and then of course attachments. It's always I don't know. It was just a sad conversation when somebody said, "Hey, do attachments move?" And then the short answer was no, they didn't. But now they do, which is kind of cool. And then we'll give you some resources at the end there. So let's start with our first polling question. Do you help? Where'd it go? I have like 5 monitors.
Yeah. Pick one
to see where they went. Do you help clients with desktop migration? Now, Sharon, since you were QBO or QB only as far as your firms, did you do that as part of your scope of work?
Oh, yeah. We haven't done one for a hot minute. I can tell you that. I think the last time we did a migration was like 20, or Jesus, what is it I was going to say 2020 something, but it had to have been in the teens, right? 1918. Haven't done one since then.
Right.
There were workarounds. To get it to work properly. So I'm really excited to see what people have to say about it now.
Yeah, I mean, probably back then, we
back
typically
in the day. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Back in the last decade, when you decided to do these things, you probably had some of the conversations of like, well, we're going to have to purge off some of your detailed data, or maybe we're just going to start over when we come over to QBO, because you end up having this conversation of, well, this isn't going to come over properly, or you've been using desktop too long, and those types of things. So now some of those conversations have shifted as far as what you're able to do, and the big but when you have a lot of these conversations is like when you're using desktop payroll and moving over to QuickBooks Online, typically that conversation was, well, we're going to have to set up payroll again because it just doesn't migrate over very well. But well, I don't want to spoil it, but I am. I did a migration just a couple weeks ago. Their retail establishment, so high turnover, right? So they had lots of employees in their QuickBooks Desktop. 431 employees active, not all active, but historically, and all of them came over to QuickBooks Online, and the direct deposit was set up, and it was their pay types was set up. It was the clouds parted for me, because it was just one of those things where you just like, oh my goodness, I'm not looking forward to setting up 431 employees even if it's not all the active employees. So let's go ahead. Where's my cursor? I cannot find it. All right. So yeah, it looks like Zoom decided to pop up differently. Yeah.
There
So
we go.
about
Well,
need to be feel more comfortable. Okay. So it looks like that's our main answer of that. So and then a lot of people do it all the time. So let's go ahead and kick this in here. So the new options with desktop migration, more data, right? So originally the a lot of times when you look at what's able to move over, the key number, the key data specific aspect, I can't think of the word, right, is targets, right? And of course, that always begs the question, well, what the heck is a target? But basically, it's a link in a transaction to something else in your QuickBooks data file. And you have an invoice, it's got a customer on it, it's got items on it, and multiple line items, and those are pointing to accounts. All of those things kind of go into the target calculation. So it's not just the size of your file, it's the size of the transactions that are in the file, right? And as of July, it was 1.5 million. Or I'm sorry, in February, I noticed it was upgraded to 1.5 million. And then the last couple times that I've done a conversion, it's now 2 million on the Intuit article. So it really does allow for a lot of data to be moved over, right? I was just talking with somebody considering they have 2.3 million, but they've been using QuickBooks Desktop since 2000. So almost 20 years of data, right? So that is not
files like a brick.
Yeah, it's a very large.
Throw it at someone and hurt them.
Right. So I mean, the double side of that coin, the other side of that coin is, yeah, just because it's eligible to come over doesn't mean it was used properly. And sometimes that data is then going to be, the creative ways that people use QuickBooks, especially in QuickBooks Desktop, because you can do a lot of things that you maybe aren't supposed to. But those things are going to bubble up to the surface. So, take that with a grain of salt. Just because it's eligible to come over doesn't mean it should come over, because it may cause more problems when it actually does come over. Now, inside of QuickBooks Desktop, there's now some checklists, and that checklist actually triggered this whole being able to migrate payroll properly. So it was actually a key thing that we're gonna unpack a little bit here. And inside of the QuickBooks Desktop right now, you have a migration status right in Desktop, so you'll be able to see. Before it was just kind of like you said it, and then once it said, "Yeah, we got it," and and then you waited, and you had no idea, the expectation of how long that was going to take. You just kind of waited for an email and hope that email shows up, or just sit there and knock on the door of QuickBooks Online waiting to be let in. And then you do have the option now for accounting only. So if you have QuickBooks Online payroll subscription, you in the past you couldn't bring that accounting data into QuickBooks Online payroll, because when there was payroll already established, it just stopped the conversion from actually taking place. So then you had this situation where you had a QuickBooks Online subscription and a QuickBooks Online payroll subscription, and they never talked. I mean, they talked to each other with an export, but they weren't completely integrated. And another thing you have there is lists only. So you have some options when the file is too big and you want to take that line in the sand approach. You can choose lists and balances, but now you can also choose lists only and choose some of those lists. So right there from within the desktop migration. Now, I've just kind of been rambling on there, sharing Or you just do you have something to add to that, or
I
are you just
do.
uh-huh?
It's all been no, this is great. I'm thinking about this and I'm really just thinking back like how I'm reading some of the questions. I'm thinking about like when you had a large file, you had to archive things out, things like that. And all of a sudden they're like, hey, we're letting you guys do all this. Great. And I think because everybody keeps saying, oh, I'll never get off of desktop. And I see things like this and I'm like, I don't think they're gonna give you a choice. This just tells me they're trying to make it so easy and
Hmm.
accommodating, like they just said, if have QuickBooks do it for you. They wouldn't even touch it back in the day because they made more money on their desktop, right? So
Right.
anyhow, it's just interesting to me, but definitely something that's needed if they're really trying to migrate their longtime enterprise or users off. It's a good thing. At least if
Yeah.
they're the desktop people are going to have their hands tied behind their back, at least they have options and they're not going to
Hmm.
be in a struggle bus, right? That's
Yeah.
my opinion.
And then it all comes down to how that data actually does make the journey. And QuickBooks has a really robust article. The challenge is if you hand that to a customer, they may not understand,
Mm-hmm.
the full effect of what it is. And so I've decided to take that article and create a resource on School of Bookkeeping here. I just want to open that up here. There it is. Okay. If I scroll down here, where'd it go? It's supposed to be right here. Why is it not?
Because you're in preview mode, Dan. That's why.
It's not supposed to. Come on, where are you? There it is. It just needed
There
more.
we go.
It does need to go up to space and back. So I created a little spreadsheet in here, and you're able to, um, assuming that you can click on this. There we go. You can filter the spreadsheet for specific workflows, right? So let's just click out of this here. Come on now. There we go. So an example. So we have, does it exist in QuickBooks Desktop? Does it exist in QuickBooks Online? And then Dan's pro tips here. Like what's different about the QuickBooks Online versus desktop? And more importantly, does it convert?
Mm-hmm,
Right.
mm-hmm.
So just kind of looking at the chart of accounts. Yes, of course, it's you have chart of accounts in both. QuickBooks Online has an additional account type called detail type, which doesn't exist in QuickBooks Desktop. So if you're importing right from Excel, then that's a consideration, right? So you don't have that consideration when it's QuickBooks Desktop doing it. And then, of course, here the QuickBooks will move. Does it convert? Your QuickBooks Online will move the accounts and assign them the detail types. You can change this later if you like. Bank account numbers and notes do not convert, right? So it's just one of those things to kind of give you an idea of and set your expectations as to what's actually going to happen during the conversion, right? So go down here to multiple shipping
This is really
addresses.
cool.
Oh no,
Is this online? This is online for anybody, right?
this is
Anybody can
yes,
see
this is
this.
totally
Guys, this is kind of
free.
a look at this cool little I'm gonna
Thingy.
bookmark this.
Yeah. And then like multiple shipping addresses, right? Like yes, in QuickBooks Desktop, you can have up to 10,000 multiple shipping addresses. I'm not sure if that's across all of your customers or for each customer, but either way, that's a lot of multiple shipping addresses.
Yeah.
Enterprise gives you 100,000. Um, and in QuickBooks Online, womp womp, right? No, not supported. Right. So that becomes a challenge, right? So then this is now a conversation starter between you and your client. Like, do I have multiple shipping addresses? Yeah, the feature with bill to or bill with parent exists, and you have the same hierarchy. But typically, what you're going to need to do is, come up with a game plan of how, if multiple shipping addresses per customer is a
Mm.
thing, right? So we're going to need to make a game plan about that, right? And then what happens when it actually converts? It only converts one shipping address and not perfectly, right? So it comes through as a one line item or one item or one field instead of splitting it out, address
Mm.
line 1, 2, city, state, zip. So you're probably going to need to go through and modify some of those shipping addresses too, right?
I have thoughts
So
on that real quick. Can I ask something? So what would you, I know what I would suggest, but if your clients came to you and said, how would you do? What would you tell them how to solve for that situation?
yeah, it really just begs more questions, like what you could
Yeah.
do, right? So in with projects and sub customers, right? So
Mm,
that's probably how I would, if they
yeah.
want to stay within, QuickBooks
Yeah.
Online, is setting up projects or jobs in that hierarchy, because
Yeah.
then you'll have the bill with parent,
Yep.
option, so
Which
you'll
is
be
what
able to.
matters and where you can run the report. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was thinking I would just set up probably a different sub customer for each shipping location if I had to track it that way, because then I'm rolling it up. I don't know. I was trying to solve for something that we probably aren't looking to solve for right now, but
Right. But
someone wants to know.
that's probably what I would recommend is, if they want to stay within the QuickBooks ecosystem and not
Hmm.
look into some other, application that might be able to support, the multiple shipping addresses per person. So you have access to that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the checklist and the status. This is contextual based on the file, right? So here in the screenshot, it's got 1 of 9. And when I go through the little walkthrough here, it'll say 0 of 9. So there's 9 things for me to look at based off of the current file that I'm in. And in
Hmm.
the sample company, there's only 6. So it is contextual in that checklist based off of features and functions that you have evaluated. And then you're going to have, or activated, I should say. And you're going to see the estimated time, right? When I did one this morning, it gave me 20 minutes, and estimated time of 20 minutes, and it was actually correct. And it will give you a status at the end, right? So say, oh, we couldn't do it, or your QuickBooks Online has a new home, right? So you'll be able to see that all within desktop. And at the point of where it's what I call baking, right? You've combined the ingredients into the bowl, put the cake in the oven, and it's baking. Where it's processing the imported file. Um, at that point, you can leave QuickBooks Desktop if you want. You don't have to keep it open, but if you do, just kind of keep it open there. You can see the status as it's going through. And then afterwards, right? So there's some post conversion best practices that we've kind of talked about here in the past. Doing this as the accountant user, you actually get a better import summary report that
Hmm.
comes rather than the migration hub report that you can download, or anybody can download as soon as you go and log into QuickBooks. But if you do this as an accountant user, you get a better import summary to give you an understanding as to why things happened the way they happened. And then there is a to-do list checklist that Intuit made available, but I don't know, I can't find it anymore. So I just stole it and saved
Borrowed
it
for the
for you.
internet. There you
All right.
go.
But if you want to get that checklist, it's actually pretty cool, because it has, kind of like pre work, like to go through some of these things that we were seeing on the conversion checklist on the spreadsheet. But you can assign like who's going to do that, and sort of things. So that built in, it has drop downs and whatnot. And on some of the other tabs that are in there, it gives you um, you can specify like who's going to do what, right? And over here on the right, this little check boxes kind of gives you an understanding of what level of subscription that they would need based off of functions and features that they would workflows that they would need to have, right? So make sure you put them in the right version to begin with. Typically, I recommend start with advanced, because you typically get the best feature set, and then you also get a discount that first year. And then at the end of that promo, you can decide, okay, I'm not using all of these features, I can downgrade at that point. All right, so let's walk through migration here.
Here we
We're
go.
already at a.
You put some
All
work into
right,
this, didn't you?
I know. All right, so I'm going to share over here, and Okay, I'll just do the entire screen. Hopefully I don't go into a vortex. All right. And I've got a whole bunch of Zoom stuff in the way. All right. So here is just a sample company, right? And I know some of you are saying, hey, you can't migrate a sample company. Well, yes, as long as you can remove the sample company flag. So, when I was there, this was a fireable offense. Telling people about this, but Hector Garcia's got a video about it. So, if they want to take out a Hector and myself, they can.
There you go.
Right.
Come at me, bro. Just kidding. Don't. Yeah. Please don't Intuit. Please don't.
Right. All right. So if you go to help and about, you bring up the help and about screen, and then you press Control Alt D B for debug, and then go back to the help menu. You have this little extra tech support option, which gives you a lot of cool things that you can do in the desktop file that you can't normally do. But one of them is toggle the sample company flag, right? So if you're in the sample company and you want to turn it into a real company, you can do that. Or if you're in a real company and you just want to turn it into a sample company, you can do that too. But that's an option in there. All right, so to get to the point of migrating, this is enterprise, so you don't have the company drop. From the company menu, you don't have this option that says export to QuickBooks Online. So in enterprise, you have to bring up the product information window, and then once you're in there, you hold the control and say B Q, and then click OK. Right. Okay, and there it comes. And hope that this screen comes up. All right, and then once you're in there, this is what I was talking about, this checklist, right? You can click on the checklist and it will open up this checklist eventually and give you some ideas of things that you should probably do before migrating, right? Like double check your list of active customers, right? So you want to make sure that the customers who are inactive should be inactive. And one of the big things about that is you don't want to have an inactive customer with a balance or an inactive inventory item that has a quantity on hand. Because when it tries to re-inactivate them, there will be a problem. So that's just one of the things that you want to kind of comb through prior to doing the conversion. And then anything else in here, you just want to take a look at. Right? So now I have to close out of this and start all over, because that checklist thing, which is usually what you would be doing, is actually, I should check this, so I should not convert my data just yet. But we're going to throw caution into the wind and just go right for it. And get the Zoom stuff out of the way. And we're going to get started. Now, I recommend setting it up inside of your QuickBooks Online accountant first, so that you already have the subscription in place. You're already listed as the accountant user. And then you can, of course, transfer your stuff over to your clients, right? So here's the option when you, the first option that you're given is, do I want to bring over all my company data, or do I want to bring over lists and balances? And then when I choose bring over lists and balances, then I have all lists and balances, and you have a little help bubble there of what will actually come over. Or if I just only want to choose lists, and then I have a drop down of which list that I want to choose, right? So these are the choices of the options of, say you don't want to bring over the items because they did make such a mess of their inventory, and you want to start over or something along those lines. So those are the options there. I'm going to choose all data. And then this whole question about inventory tracking. Do I want to track inventory? If yes, then I got to choose a FIFO date, because QuickBooks Online uses first in, first out cost calculation. QuickBooks Desktop uses weighted average, or if you're using advanced inventory, it does use FIFO. But keeping in mind all about that, that's a whole nother topic about the inventory considerations of moving things over. Or you could choose don't move over inventory. And what that does is it actually turns every single inventory item during the conversion into non-inventory parts. The financial impact of all of that actually is handled based on historical transactions, but every inventory part becomes a non-inventory part, and then you can go through and clean up the items, turn on the inventory for those items if you wanted to, or just start fresh if you want. But you got to have the item in your item list or your product and service list in order for the historical impact of those transactions to make the journey.
Man, part of me would want to transfer it over and just journal it out, right? I don't know that I would trust the process enough. I'd rather transfer it, look at my balance sheet or my inventory on my desktop, confirm it went over correctly, and then go in and make one huge journal entry adjusting and removing my inventory. That's just me. That scares me.
Yeah.
Migration's scary.
And that's part of the best practices here is that doing this in a trial version of QuickBooks Online before doing it for a live subscription, it always will give you a good guidance as to what we're in for, right? So there's only so much that you can do with QuickBooks, combing through the data and the settings to really see, well, what is it going to actually do today? So I tend to, do it in a trial. You get the import summary. That's going to give you some guidance as to what you may want to take care of. I did this, prior to the session today, and I got the import summary, and of course it didn't match. So, this is a good example of doing that. So at this point, you're going to choose a date, and what date you actually choose there is a good question. But that's a conversation, right? And then what's going to happen is assuming you're signed in, which I was, and I am. I think it does have Zoom window is giving me a conniption there. Let me start this over here. All these things are in the way of this one screen. All right. Then it's going to ask you to sign in if you're not already signed in. And then once you sign in, then it's going to give you a list of companies that you might want to bring these that are available to bring them into. I'm actually not going to sign in at this point because everybody knows how to sign in. But it'll bring a list of companies, and if there's already payroll in there, it will say you can bring over accounting only. And then at that point, you start walking through. It just starts the process of uploading and gives you that status. Let me go ahead and stop sharing here, and we'll restart sharing over here. And there we are. Okay, so far so good. All right. So that's the process of migrating with the new options that are available. While that's processing, we want to talk a little bit about the Intuit news. So we've talked a little bit in the past about the login issues, the vulnerability of accountants and bookkeepers and ProAdvisors of potentially having their email login, Intuit login compromised. So on the tails of that, a lot of people have gone in and noticed, hey, there wasn't a code that was sent. And so they go in and they check a setting inside of their Intuit account. And lo and behold, they see that two-step verification is turned off. And of course, under that circumstance, that will be concerning, right? Like that normal process of not getting your code and then going in and seeing that there's a setting that would send that code turned off is concerning, right? Like the logical concern, right? So I spoke to the folks over at Intuit and just wanted to make sure that people are aware there is a difference between multi-factor authentication and the two-step verification process, or the two-step verification setting inside of your account. So it's the same, but it's different, right? So the multi-factor authentication and two-step verification results in the same thing. You get a 6-digit code, which will verify your identity when you try to log in. But they're different in that multi-factor authentication, or MFA, is mandatory. You cannot opt out of MFA, right? But this will occur when a new login is detected, right? So if I were to sign into QuickBooks Desktop for the first time, it's going to ask me to verify myself when I go and sign in. If I hypothetically move from Coldwater, Michigan to outside of Chicago and sign into QuickBooks, that is a new login, even though it may have happened on the same day, but because I'm now physically in a different location, that is a new login to Intuit. So that is going to send me a code, right? Two-step is actually an optional thing. It's an extra layer of security that you are opting into your login, and by default, they're turned off, right? So don't be surprised when you go and check your login and see that two-step is turned off. Now, if you turned it on and you know that you opted in and it's turned off, that's a different story. And that's, I think, where the line that we're drawing here is that if you turned on two-step verification and it's now turned off, then that's a reason to question, like what happened. But by and large, like if I go in and look at most of my accounts, I don't have two-step verification turned on. Right?
You don't?
I don't have the option for I don't have it turned on. I rely actually on the passkeys, which is a third
passkeys. Got
which
you.
is the third option.
I am a VPN user because I've watched too much Edward Snowden, and so I have to do it every single time. So I didn't realize that it wasn't just a thing. I know this has been in your group and a lot. This has been a huge controversy lately. So I feel like they solved for a problem we weren't asking, but at least it's a step in the right direction. I don't know. It's a step in the right direction.
So they created a nice article, talks about the difference between the MFA and the two-step verification, as well as talking about some of the passkey options as well. And we've got some resources there about what passkeys are. But by the way, with the passkey, you don't have to use the code, right? So that, I mean, that both of these processes are removed out of the issue when you use a passkey. I just get really confused about passkeys when I log in.
You prefer it more than I'm actually talking with Murph here in the Q&A because he likes using the Q&A instead of the chat. But Murph's old, it's okay. I prefer the 2FA because I want to know if I have a passkey, they can't get in. I like knowing that when I get to go and log in, it's like sent you a code. And if I'm just sitting there on my couch watching TV, I'm like, who is trying to get in my account? And then I go in and I freak out. But I have a couple things I use a passkey for, like Google. Does it work the same?
Yeah, it's you can use biometrics, right? So I have a fingerprint option.
I watch too many movies, too many Tom Cruise movies. I don't like it.
And it seems like a really smooth process. And we talked about this a little bit on the unofficial QuickBooks Accountants podcast with Alicia. And we brought in Jamie, her husband, who is a Mac guy, and he talked a lot about what passkeys actually do and what they actually solve for, right? And one of the things that they solve for is trying to remember what your damn password is, because that's typically what happens when you want. I mean, logins are the bane of our existence these days, and trying to
Yeah.
remember strong and which
Hold
I
on.
mean,
Let's
you
take one
still,
step back here. You say, remember, you're not using something like one pass. Like I couldn't even tell
oh yeah,
you what oh my gosh, I'll go to my team. I'm like, why is your password your dog's name? Delete new password. I can't know.
oh yeah,
I watch that my watchtower is almost just 1,000 every day because I go crazy. I'm like, we
oh, of
have
course,
people's data.
yeah, of
Everybody out
course I
there,
use
do you see this? If I find out that you're writing down your passwords or you're using your anniversary or something as your password for your clients, I'm coming to your door and we're going to handle this. That's all.
right.
Go ahead, Dan.
But yeah, of course I use a password vault, um, but sometimes those aren't synchronized across
No.
various devices, and like, well, why is it working here? And then I hate it when Google Chrome password vault and the password vault you're using start fighting on the same website, and I can't see behind what the
Yeah.
pop-up that
Yeah.
came up. It's like, come on, which login is it? I don't know. But a pass key is like, oh, okay, I'm in. But we got that there. Okay, so next polling question.
All right. I can't
Do
wait to see this one.
do you have two-step verification? Wait, okay. Why did it do that?
What's
Okay.
it doing?
No, every time that I launch the poll on the monitor above my
Mhm.
computer, the poll
Goes
jumps
to the
down to
left.
the, to the bottom.
Mine goes over here to I have 3 monitors. It's over here in the upper left-hand corner, and I don't know why. So Dan, I know you're going to ask me. I know our back and forth thing here now. So I know you're going to ask me, and I think I made that blatantly clear that I actually just went through, we did an audit with our entire team, and the one thing, and what made me do this is seeing all the activity of 2FA and the issues of people breaking into QuickBooks. The one thing that I didn't love about Intuit is I have zero control to turn on or off 2FA for my team. I can log in and see if they have it on, but I can't
Mm,
force them to do it. So now I have, which I can't stand, I don't like manual. I have this monthly thing where I go in and I make sure that 2FA is not shut off for anybody. And if they do, I kick them out and make them get a new password. I mean,
mm.
I don't want
You
to
got
claim
a
on my
wagging
insurance,
of
you
the
know?
finger from Sharon. You don't want
Nobody wants
that.
this, Dan.
No. All right. And I see Jolene in the Q&A. So is MFA and two-step verification only QBO related or also QBDT? So this is Intuit account related. So anytime that you sign into anything Intuit related that uses an Intuit account, that is whether that's going to be the MFA or two-step verification, right? So this could be TurboTax, this could be Credit Karma, this could be anything that could be Intuit related as far as a login.
MailChimp, T-sheets. And you should have this on as an accounting firm owner or an accountant at all. If you have any sort of insurance, like this is a huge, huge thing. And with the
Right.
hackers nowadays, they're good. You should have some sort of level of protection on absolutely everything beyond MFA.
Mhm.
Actually, in everybody's opinion, this isn't just mine, this is
Yeah.
everybody's. So go turn them on right now while you're listening.
All right. All right. So let's go ahead and we're close on the ending here. So I just want to share the results. So hooray, half of you have it turned on already. Good job.
Oh.
All right. Okay. So now we're going to talk about migrating best practices with payroll, right? So what happens to payroll during the migration, right? So the financial impact of payroll is migrated before anything regarding the payroll setup process takes place. So your employee lists are going to come over, your paycheck liability, your paychecks and liability checks, they get turned into regular checks with the accounting impact of that paycheck to be recorded. Liability adjustments, there is no such thing as a liability adjustment in QuickBooks Online Payroll or QuickBooks Online without payroll for that matter. So they get turned into journal entries, right? So the financial impact makes the journey before payroll setup occurs, right? Then the payroll setup process actually starts after the migration. So this is where employee setup occurs. and earnings, deductions, the direct deposit information. And then with regards to actual payroll data, only the current year is going to come over and be set up, because, you know, you do it today, right? We're in August. QuickBooks Online Payroll is only going to be concerned about the current year with regards to form filings and tax payments, right? So it doesn't care what happened last year, right? So keep that in mind, that if you want to run payroll reports, you're not going to get them out of the prior years once this occurs, but you are going to get year-to-date payroll amounts, so that they're pay stub. There we go. So the pay stub is accurate. So you'll see the current pay and the year-to-date, as well as the tax payments, because the end of the year, you're going to have the W-2s and the annual form filings that QuickBooks is going to be able to do. And it needs to know all that information for the first year, right? So, I thought, was this link takes me back over here? Okay. Next. Okay. So, oh, there we go. I had another slide. So this was the nugget that I saw in that checklist. So thank you, QuickBooks, for pointing me in the right direction. So in the checklist, there is down here, I'll make this a little bigger because I saw okay, Sharon squinting her eyes. In the checklist, there is this setup admin role permissions in desktop. To migrate payroll direct deposit to QuickBooks Online, the QuickBooks Online admin must have admin role permissions in QuickBooks Desktop. This is not, I'm logging into QuickBooks as the admin. I'm logging into the Intuit account inside of QuickBooks as the primary admin. So this gets really confusing when we're talking about admins, account user, you know, so on and so forth, right? And lo and behold, come on now. So over here, so we showed that F2 control 1 screen. You'll see this here in the upper right, where it talks about Intuit account information. That is what it's talking about. So whoever's the primary admin in the company needs to be the primary admin who's doing the migration if you want payroll to make the journey, right? If payroll's not an issue, this is not, you know, this is not an issue, right? So if you're going to be using Rippling or Gusto or ADP or any time outside of payroll service, on pay or anything else, this is a moot point anyway, because the financial impact is going to make the journey regardless of what you do here, right? So first thing is to update QuickBooks Desktop. Make sure you're on the latest version of Desktop. The Intuit ID for admins need to match, right? So if you're doing this as the accountant, you are an admin by default as the accountant user inside of QuickBooks Online. You don't have to be the primary admin in the QuickBooks Online. So that's fine. But if your login is not the primary admin inside a desktop, then that's going to be a problem when payroll comes to try to migrate, right? So there is a way to reset that, right? If you've brought in the file, you know, local to your machine, and you're doing it locally, then you can reset the Intuit ID, which is just temporary for the conversion process. So I've created a little blog about it. Right? We talk a little bit about the desktop, or Intuit talks about the desktop versus Intuit logins and how they relate. But down here, we've got a little scribe. So I'm just going to kind of walk through that process here. Right. So here's the Intuit account information. If it's empty or if it's not yours, then this process, you want to continue through this, right? So you're going to close out of that. And then when you go to the help menu, there's a little button here that says, make it bigger, reset Intuit ID settings. You got to be signed in as the QuickBooks admin. This is the admin user that you're signing in into Quick. Thanks for bringing out the glasses. you have to be signed in as the admin, right? ADMIN when you sign in to into QuickBooks in order to see this option, right? So just click on reset the settings. It's going to say, hey, are you sure? You got to type in yes in that process, and then it will reset. It'll say your Intuit ID settings were reset and you've been signed out of your account. Sign in again. So you go back to company, my company, and then click on sign in, which should be over here, but I somehow got cut off on the screen. So over here where it says manage your account, there's a sign in button or a link right above that. And then you just say, hey, I'm the admin of this company. And then go through the process of signing in. And then when you go back and check the F2 or the product information window, you should see your login information. And as long as that login is the same login that you're doing the conversion on, you're good. Or at least you should be. That's the theory. So like I was saying, I've done this a couple times and it works really slick. Now it doesn't set it up right away, right? Like after you get that that email that says, "Hey, you're ready," it still has to go through and set that up for all those employees and whatnot. But like I was saying, that 431 employees got set up properly. The year-to-date information came over. It was really just a matter of checking those things as I was going through, rather than running reports, trying to find them in the desktop and make sure that they, and entering that information, which is never in the same order. It's maddening if you've ever tried to set up payroll and QuickBooks Online after a migration from desktop, FICA or, Social Security or Medicare. They're never in the same order as QuickBooks Online. And then this whole thing of like first quarter, year to date, you got to put in, as opposed to first quarter and what's in the current quarter or something like that. So it does get a little maddening when you're trying to do that. So huge breakthrough, I guess, is if you are migrating payroll, if you do this process, again, try it out first before telling your client, yeah, it'll set it up fine. Because I was even doing this and contacting Intuit, and they were like, this ain't going to work for you. They were giving me the, you might as well, buckle up. And I was glad to report that they were incorrect. All right. So real quick, before we wrap up here, migrating attachments. This is a little unique situation, because attachments in desktop, they are stored in the same location as the company file, but they are not part of the backup, right? So all of those attachments that you have attached to customers or transactions, when you have a lot of attachments, that is a concern or consideration, because they just never came over. And in QuickBooks Desktop, once they're attached, the originals aren't needed, because what QuickBooks does is it copies it into a folder wherever the company file happens to be located, which, if you're in a multi-user environment, that is typically on a server somewhere, right? So that gets a little bit complicated as we were talking about this. So in the past, it wasn't possible to migrate with desktop migrations. You typically needed a third party to move all of them, and the price tag to do all of that was really high. So the caveats here is that the files actually need to be local, right? So this is now a consideration or complication when we're talking about a multi-user environment, because the company file location is going to be located on a server. So just like desktop, desktop migration is going to have a problem if you migrate from across the server. you want to have those local, and you also want to have the attachments local as well. And it has to be done inside the QuickBooks Desktop. You can't use the online web portal to migrate your data and attachments. And they have to be less than 30 megabytes. So all of your video files that you've attached to your customers or whatnot, they aren't going to come over because they're probably too big, and they may not even be the file type.
And that's where a loom link comes into play.
Right. Exactly. So these are the supported file types. Oh, I'm glad GIFs will come over, because all of the memes that you've attached to your customers.
The Fry from Futurama, take my money. That's the one I use the most, I think.
There we go. So those are the types of attachments that will go. Now, the process is, of course, you need to locate that documents folder. So I put a frequently asked questions Intuit article. It's really robust, prior slides, so you can access that later. But you want to go and you want to find the locations of your documents. Typically, you're going to need to compress it or zip it into one file and then move it local wherever your company file is, and then extract it in that same location wherever that company file happens to be located, and then clean up the links, right? So once you've moved it and you've changed the location, you're going to want to make sure that they go through and repair the links, because now the path is totally changed. So you want to make sure that it's attached again. All right, so I did. Okay, so here is the import summary, right? That came over. It will tell me, tells me here that there were 739 transactions in the company file and desktop, and there were 717 that came over, right? So what you don't get on the regular import summary is this little link here to see the transaction details. Well, here's my problem, right? So a bunch of build assemblies didn't come over, right? Which is not unexpected, because you don't have such a thing as a build assembly, but I might want to look at these build assemblies that are in there to see if there's something that could be done at that point. And there was also some altered transactions of an inventory adjustment was turned into a journal entry, right? So just because it didn't come over doesn't mean that it didn't have the same financial impact. So you'll also be able to see that with accounts, right? So just because there's a discrepancy doesn't necessarily mean there's a reason to panic. So purchase orders just isn't even used. That's not an account that's used inside of QuickBooks Online. So this is a non-issue, right? Vendors, there were other names. They got turned into vendors. It's really just all it's saying there. And then it just gives you an idea of actually what happened. So I did. So this is the company, and I just wanted to show in the attachments. There are the attach. Oh, I wanted to show before I did it, but I'm not going to do that on the other. I had these in my document center in the desktop file, and here they are. They came over. I just put some. There were actually three, and one was attached to a sales order. Any guesses why it didn't come over? Because sales orders don't exist inside of QuickBooks Online. So it did bring over the two, and it did attach them. So here on my invoice, here is the attachments are there. So if I go down enough of you, roll down, there's the attachment. So I've got my CSV file that I happen to attach, and there it is. It's already attached, and I can look at it, right? Oops. There. So it's there, right? So that's a huge win for the migration process. So, I've been sharing the last the last poll question since I launched it. But let's close up with was this information useful? Sharon, any final thoughts before we
I'm
wrap up?
excited for anybody who's doing conversions nowadays because this is not how it was back in the day, right? It was not at all. But then again, desktop probably didn't have the level that they had. Online didn't have the level that they had. So
Yeah.
I think it's really cool for anybody that wants to come over. I also love that Intuit is helping them do it, regardless of what the motives are. The fact that we do less is amazing. And knowing that it's done right. So I think this is great. It can be a little overwhelming. And if you're a solopreneur, this is a lot of time. So I would probably let Intuit handle it, charge for it, because you still got to be the middleman. But this is very informative, especially about the payroll. That's really cool.
Yeah, I actually got a customer or a client who is trying to go from enterprise to QuickBooks Online, and their response from Intuit was, it's not going to work. And because they have 120,000 customers, and
I mean, yeah,
that's
where you just
lot.
honestly, you export the list and the data, you archive the file, you have it for reference, and you start a new file at the beginning of the year. I know that's terrible, but sometimes when your file's too heavy, if you have a file that heavy, you should be on something super enterprise or like a big one. But I know that's what Intuit's trying to be now.
Yeah, and they also have negative inventory, so running a condense, things like that is a big challenge. So where there's a will, there's a workaround, and we're actually getting to a breakthrough point with them. So just because it says it's failed, it doesn't mean that it's not an option.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Sharon, I thank you for filling in for Matthew today.
Yes.
And you will continue to be our snarky.
Yay! But I'm also having fun in
sass.
the questions, so I hope I'm being at least helpful there because there were 33 of them. Most of them were Murph, but that's okay. We'll take
man,
it.
he's asking what the hell is negative inventory.
You know, Murph, it's a thing. We've seen it. I also want to tell everybody I am offering anybody on this call 90 days free to my Clone and Conquer hub. Pop in, get some free stuff. No
pressure.
purchase necessary, no pressure either. So
exactly.
I suppose so
we appreciate you joining us today, and next time we're going to have a method being joining us when we what I've found is that they have become a great bridge when workflows that were critical in QuickBooks Desktop and you need them in QuickBooks Online. And we're going to talk about how they can save the day for those desktop migrations that just went awry. So hopefully you join us in a couple weeks when we have that. And until then, have a great day, and we'll see you next time on the QB Power Hour.